Proportional Response, Book 1, Chapter 25, Part 4, The Fix is In. Kaz sucked air between his teeth as Henry finished. That is harsh, Henry, using Kilintar's legally registered name rather than the one with which he has held office. Fair, though, hope it really sticks in Jalat's craw. Kaz raised his hand to register his vote and stopped with his hand just short of the abstain button. His eyes drew down and he frowned. The plan called for him to abstain, in order to keep his appearance of neutrality and seem above the fray. His mind ranged back over the last 2 years, and then over the course of history, and the realities of Venter keeping themselves above the fray for so long. He felt one corner of his lip rise slightly in a sneer. Like hell. He stabbed his finger through the yay button, wishing for the first time that his booth had a physical button he could pound. Hrumph. Enable may not be the only one who has spent too much time with the humans. His attention widened again, and he realized he'd become somewhat micro-focused on his own musings. He could hear, even through the soundproofing, things on the other side of his booth's door getting more excited. A look around showed that other ambassadors had noticed it as well and grew ever more nervous. He then looked at the board and his eyes widened slightly. How long has it been since there was a unanimous vote in this chamber? A truly unanimous vote. No nay, not even an abstain. Even the scared of their shadows Gorful and Findle. Even the Slar. Kaz shook his head in wonder. Everyone here. And we have everyone except the Exaltan and the Pinigra. Now we just have to keep everyone alive. At least this session is going out by Kokam, so everyone will know, regardless of what happens to us. Henry looked back at the board and raised a single fist in salute, then turned back to the chamber. My fellow ambassadors, I thank you, and I laud you. For your courage, and for voting your conscience. To all those out there who have witnessed this historic event, I say rejoice. Centuries of oppression are at an end. To my fellow ambassadors, you who have had the courage to stand today and be counted, I say. Jalat's voice echoed through the chamber. You are all a pack of fools. An explosion to Fnth's left caused her to reflexively dive for cover, and she thanked her reflexes as a chunk of concrete sailed through the space she'd just vacated. She heard answering artillery fire off behind her and saw some point on the Capitol building of the Republic, where nearly the entire mass of their hated voters had assembled, explode in a shower of flame. I think that they got that mortar. Good. She leapt to her feet and screamed defiance at the line of Republic troops before her. The scream was echoed by more voices than she thought she'd ever hear at once, all beside and behind her. She raised her human-built, slug-throwing rifle and gestured, and everyone surged forward. I come for you, Jalat! We know that you thought to crush the rebellion here, taking the bait of the full assembly at this moment, when the council is voting to end your pet Kilintar's position. But we also know you expected less than half of the force we have assembled, and did not expect us to have anything like the kind of weapons we are bringing to bear. Your evil, your terror, your torture of Zoltans ends today. Kazlo scowled as a 40-foot-tall hollow of Jalat, reclining on the most audacious and ornate throne he'd ever seen, suddenly appeared, while her words echoed through the chamber. He felt his eyes widen, and his blood run hot in one heart and cold in the other. Wait a minute! Is that a crown on her head? Jalat's crown seemed to scrape the top of the council chamber, and her oversized form stared down imperiously at everyone. She sat there, staring in contempt, obviously trying to intimidate. A quick look around irritated Kaslar. Her attempt worked on far too many of his peers. As she stood there and stared, words started to appear on his contacts from Yoro. In moments, a solid block of text began to flow through his field of vision, faster than he could read it. She only types that fast at me when she is truly upset. He skimmed a few words and cycled the feed off, then on. Text began to appear again, but this time in manageable quantities. Yoro, sorry. Short version. Now we know the purpose of the psyops Jalat and her crew were running on their people, and why she didn't seem too distressed about losing so many battles, nor their war effort stalling. She was breaking down what little will the Sultan people had left so that they would accept her as monarch, despite their history. I think Mendesh understood this on some level, even though the rest of us missed it. The psyops moves he was making now make a certain sense. Kaslow felt anger flare. That is why he wouldn't tell us what he was doing or why. We could have helped. Euro. I can't really blame him. Looking at what he did, and the suggestions I was getting from both humans and Venter to counter Jalat if this were her goal, we would have botched it hard and made Mendesh's job so much harder. We have reports that he is... Jalat finally sneered and spoke. Subjects of the great and everlasting Sultan Empire, hear me and mark my words. I am your empress. We, the wise and benevolent rulers of the Sultan, have allowed all of you to play at democracy for long enough, and you have proven yourselves unworthy of that right. Rejoice. Revel in seeing this day in history when we, the mighty and kind, Zoltans, take on the burden of leadership of all the worlds of the former League. The great and noble Penigra, who understand the need for a strong monarch, shall maintain their separate kingdom, of course. Let them stand as an example to all of you. Serve diligently and well, learn the lessons we shall teach you, and in time your kind may be deemed fit to stand on their own. Jalat's snout came down slightly. For now, however, take comfort that we will be taking charge of your governments. We will be judging your leaders with fairness and wisdom. Many of them have worked against us in these recent years, but we understand. The depraved humans, with their weakening call of freedom and individual power, have harmed your minds. We are not without mercy, and will temper our justice with that mercy for those leaders who submit immediately to our righteous authority. The image zoomed in, and Jalat's head seemed to fill the open space of the council chamber. Her visage hardened, and her eyes closed to slits, with the exception of the traitors standing in the former council chamber of the League. They have, in foolish insurrection, tried to vote themselves away from us, the rightful rulers of all of you. For this, their lives are forfeit. Still, even in this, I will provide some mercy. Any who will hold their places and submit properly will be taken into slavery to live out whatever remains of their pathetic lives in service to your rightful rulers, and the stain of their rebellion will be forgotten by history. Those who run or, worse, fight the rightful purge which even now descends upon them will be subject to public execution. Their families and treasures will be seized, their offspring sterilized, and their names remembered as traitors for all time. So, traitors of the former council, choose your fate, and choose wisely. The image of Jalat fritzed for a moment, and she looked off screen. It backed up so that it showed her torso again. She yelled something that her microphones failed to pick up because of what sounded like an explosion. She then looked at the camera and waved an imperious hand. Then the hologram went out. Kaz didn't remember standing, nor moving his hand towards the controls which would open all the chamber doors. Before he could hit the control, however, Henry's image appeared much as Jalat's had. Citizens of the League, do not despair, and do not be fooled by Jalat and the posturing of the Uxans. They have, it seems, expanded their space fleet by purchasing ships from the Penigra. There is much to be said about this, but very little time. For now, I simply ask for you to take two things I am going to tell you on faith. The first is that the Altans have received the only aid from the Penigra they are going to. We have proof of this, and it will be forthcoming as soon as possible, but for now, I hope I have earned at least this much trust from you, the governments and citizens of the League. The second is that, even with the additional ships, we can still beat the Zoltans. Humanity, standing alone, still stands a fighting chance, even with their newfound strength. All of us together, however, with the fighting races like the Ruxa and the Venter joining those of us who fight, and the rest of you providing support, as have the Gorful and the Runner, their defeat is assured. Why else do you think Jalat would be so desperate to intimidate you into falling in line, even as she is attacked? The hologram winked out, and the lights flickered. Kaz punched controls on his screen and frowned. Henry spoke, his image on the wall screens at the back of the chamber now, as was fitting. I have closed the feed to the worlds of the League, because we, those of us in this room, are in grave. Kaz put his hand to his pistol as he heard an explosion even through the soundproof chamber doors. Danger. Dot. The Penigra fleet which was holding outside this system is not crewed by the Penigra. They sold the ships to the Alton. Kaz pulled his pistol out and turned to face the door as ambassadors began to mutter in fear. A few of the weaker-willed among them went down on their knees and put their hands on their heads. Kaz couldn't help but curl his lip in contempt. Henry, however, held up both his hands as if to forestall rash action. Do not give in to fear. The Confederation has protected you before, and we shall do so again. I wish I had time to detail to you what we face, but I don't. The Zoltan troops have already started to move on this building, and the space battle against the Zoltan's purchased fleet has started. So my fellows, I beseech you, do as your staff, aides, and their families have done. Follow the directives of the human military. We have people placed throughout the council complex, and we have a plan to get you to safety. Kaz started for his door as another muffled explosion sounded from somewhere. Cries of shock, fear, and anger swept through the chamber. Looks like several ambassadors have been playing fast and loose with the weapons restrictions. That is something that will help us, at least, I hope. At least no one looks like they want to just lie down and die anymore. I just wish I knew what Henry had planned. Henry had moved his platform directly forward until it touched the findals. He spoke with urgency. I am opening the doors to the chamber now. You will all find well-armed humans there to greet you. Well, most of you have been through this before. Let's go.